Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming along. We've got three fabulous speakers today, and today's all about supporting tenants and supporting communities. So the first speaker is Gary MacLeod, and Gary, I'll let the speakers tell you exactly who they are, but Gary works for the Hebridean Housing Partnership. Then we've got Tracy Wilson from North Ayrshire Council, and they're going to tell us about how they've supported tenants individually. And then we've got Margaret Fraser from NG Homes in Glasgow, who'll talk about supporting the wider community. It's a great lineup, and we are absolutely delighted that they all said yes. There was no bullying, no false moves to try and get people here. So a wee bit of housekeeping, as Elaine's already said, we're recording this and we're going to mute your mic. We've already had a request from a housing association. Their board are really keen to see this video recording from today. They couldn't manage alone. We're going to keep the questions to the end. Hopefully most of you have the ability to put your hand up by pressing the wee hand button, and if not, if you wave or shout your name, then we should get to you there. Hopefully we'll get a chance to answer all the questions. You didn't come along today to listen to me gibbering on, so I'm going to move over to Gary, and then I'll mute. So Gary, are you ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, you did say three great speakers. I don't know who the other three people are who are great speakers, but it's not me. Yeah, I'm ready to go whenever.
Okay, thanks for coming along, Gary.
Yeah, am I okay just to share my own presentation? Is that all right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Hope everything works. So, yeah, as Leslie said, I'm Gary MacLeod. I'm the Service Development Manager at Hebridean Housing Partnership. That is a wonderful job title. It basically means a whole load of things. So day to day, I'm in charge of the customer services team and everything that comes along with that. But in terms of the wider organisation, anything on the operational side of Hebridean Housing Partnership, I have some influence over, or I have some input into. And I'm not going to waste your time talking about the full background of HHP or who we are. I'm going to give you a few bits and pieces that will help you understand our situation pre-COVID and how that impacted on our response plan. Don't be fooled by that picture that's in front of you at the moment, which I hope you can all see. It's not normally that sunny, okay? We've got about 2,200 homes across 12 islands in the Outer Hebrides. And if anybody's not up on their geography, that's where we are, okay? Apologies to anybody from Dumfries and Galloway and the borders, but I had to include Shetland in there, just a wee bit of solidarity between island communities. Our total land area that we cover is about twice the size of London. And we've got 100 miles between our most northerly and most southerly homes. And I actually looked at this before I came on, and it would take 7 hours to drive from one to the other right now if you were to do it. That includes taking 2 ferry trips. We went through a large stock transfer from our local authority in 2006, and we've gone through a few other smaller stock transfers since then. So we do have quite a range of house types and ages. And luckily for where we are as well, we have an aging population and a declining population. We also have only, I think it's the lowest percentage of working age population in Scotland out of all the council areas. Essentially what that means, before COVID even happened, we had a problem with digitally and socially isolated tenants. Some tenants, not only do they not see people from one end of the week to the other, but they are also in remote areas. We do have a few of our properties that are really quite isolated areas, especially if you don't have access to your own transport. So our reaction, on the 23rd of March, we had no workable phone system outside of our offices other than mobile phones, and anybody who's been to the islands can tell you that that's not a reliable source of communication. By the end of the 24th of March, we had our phone system in place, but we were limited to 3 incoming lines. And all of our staff transitioned to home working in 24 hours, which we had never done before. That's not a new thing. I'm pretty sure everybody in here has had that same problem. But it did give us a few issues in terms of how we were going to react to this and how we were going to help our tenants. So our management team and our board decided that we would contact all 2,200 tenants, and we started with the most vulnerable tenants. And I'm sure one thing that I think everybody has in common with this whole situation is that no matter how much you think you know your tenant and how much information you have, you don't know enough. So we were really reliant on our housing officers and our area managers to identify these vulnerable tenants and to help all the other staff who were redeployed to making these welfare calls so that we could get to the most vulnerable first of all, and then work our way through the rest of our tenants. But we, even if we knew that somebody had no needs, had no impact to their income, were quite comfortable and were able to manage through the entire situation, we still contacted them. So we redeployed all of our operational staff and some of our admin staff. Our clerk of works and our handy people became boots on the ground, and they were our physical link. So some tenants we couldn't actually contact by phone or email or any other method that we had. So we had to get somebody out there to actually go and drop something through the letterbox. Our handy person up on Lewis and Harris actually covered 10,000 miles in 3 months delivering food parcels to individuals that we identified who needed recurring food parcels. And this was not simply because of their economic status. This is because our transport links were completely cut. So some people were literally a 50-mile round trip away from their nearest affordable shopping. Our CEO obviously got very involved in this and actually did regular updates on our website as well, just to make sure that she was our full public face of the organization and was keeping everybody as informed as possible throughout the whole situation. We took really three steps, and this was with each tenant individually, but as a whole as well. Contact, so make sure that we know that we have been in contact with them and if they have any needs, and getting all of that down as well. So we developed a full new system in 2 days to try and gather all of that information. So we were looking at employment, any health needs, mental health, everything. Then the next stage was to develop that. So that was with local organizations, community organizations, local authority, health, police, fire, whoever was getting involved. And that development there was then to try and build a network of support for each of our tenants and try to get kind of bespoke help to each of them. And then from that point on, maybe within about 3 to 4 weeks, we were at the point where we kind of knew who we needed to contact. So it was a week of contact or a week and a half where we did 1,500 calls. Then we identified anybody else who was missed by that. Then we developed networks and everything that was building up. And then we moved to the sustain stage, which is who do we need to help and how do we need to help them for the entirety of the lockdown. Some of the lessons that we learned was that, a positive lessons that our community and partnership working was fantastic in the islands. We're 12 separate islands for our stock, but essentially it is a series of many communities that were all linked together. Our tenant engagement went through the roof. Some tenants who we haven't contacted in years and who would never have the opportunity to get engaged with us. Now we have lines of communication, we have updated contact details. It's been fantastic. We actually received over 300 compliments throughout our welfare calls. A lot of them were saying, thank you, I don't need your help, but thank you. And I feel so much better knowing that you're out there helping other tenants who are in need. In terms of digital inclusion, we were lucky enough to get some devices, source some devices and some funding for that. In fact, one tenant in Uist complimented us on getting in contact with him, but then a couple of weeks later, he then knew that we were a source of help, and he called us and said, my phone's broken. It's my only contact to the outside world, and it's how I contact my family who are living on the mainland. We were able to source him a brand new phone, and he said that helped with his mental health throughout the whole crisis. And he was just very complimentary to our team in the US. And awareness, we're a lot more aware now of who our tenants are, what they need, and what they are asking us to do in the future. Not just because of this, not just in relation to this pandemic, but what they're wanting us to do moving forward. In terms of must do better, again, it's probably the same things. So tenant participation and engagement, we realized how far we were behind in some things. I mean, we've been quite lucky that we've got We've had great links with TPAS, and we've had some brilliant work done for our tenant participation over the last 4 or 5 years. But we can always do more. In terms of digital delivery, we really notice that is something that we need to work on, and especially with working from home, I think everybody would agree with that. Information is king. Like I said, we can never know enough about our tenants, and I think the more that we know, and that we are committed now to knowing more about our tenants and what their needs are, so that we can deliver the services that everybody actually needs. And then community and partnership working. Although there was a huge change in the first month and a half of the crisis, I think doubling down on that and embedding that into our services and making sure that partnership working across the islands is a priority moving forward. That's really something that we're wanting to work on. That's pretty much where we are at the moment. We're still supporting some of our tenants on an individual basis, but we are getting back to what you could possibly class as normal. But yeah, other than that, I don't really have much more to add to it. So I know Leslie said we'd take the license at the end, so yeah. I suppose this slide is redundant, so I'll just get rid of it now.
Okay, that's great, Gary. It was great to put it in context as well, something very different. So thanks for that, Gary, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions for you at the end. So I'm going to move on to Tracy Wilson from North Ayrshire.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Tracy.
I'll just load this up. Well, thanks very much, everybody. Thanks to TPAS for asking me to join you today. It's my pleasure to give you an overview of what we've been doing in North Ayrshire since March. Our role, my primary role, is basically I'm the tenant participation manager. Based within Housing Services, but my role has been a dual role since March. I have been the lead coordinator for the sheltered housing calls and also a bit of tenant participation in there. So today you're going to get value for money. You're going to get 2 short presentations for the price of 1. So there we go, Leslie. Okay, so just a wee bit of an
Thanks, Tracy.
An update in terms of how we're keeping our tenants and service users involved. I want to give you a bit of an overview on how we as a team and as a service within North Ayrshire have helped our most vulnerable tenants and sheltered tenants during the COVID. And the second part is about how we're getting around the current restrictions using digital media. So I don't have a lovely map like what Gary just had there. So I have got just a vision, if you can we are based on North Ayrshire Council, are based on the west of Scotland, west coast. We've got a housing stock of just approximately 13,000 at the moment. We've got 26 sheltered housing complexes with approximately just over 500 tenants in there. Before COVID, Health and Social Care Partnership, what they did was they carried out daily care checks. These were check-in, chat-the-door visits to the tenants living in the sheltered housing accommodation. Due to the lockdown restrictions, they had to pull the resources from the complexes, and what that was going to identify was that was a big gap that their most vulnerable tenants within North Ayrshire were going to be left. So Housing Services took on the role on the 30th of March by myself leading up a team of 8 staff members, and we took on the role of making daily contact, telephone contact with the tenants who previously received care, and the other people that we didn't have care, we made weekly calls. And building on what Gary was just saying there, you think you know your tenants, but realistically a lot of us really don't. So this was a whole new regime for us in North Ayrshire. In addition to that, what we did was we wanted to make sure our tenant representatives, you'll hear me talking about golden nuggets, the tenant representatives in North Ayrshire are our golden nuggets. We made sure that we had weekly contact with them because we didn't want to lose any engagement opportunities or any relationships that had been built up. The other thing that was initiated was welfare calls went out to all people over 60 in North Ayrshire as well. So that was coordinated by myself, and it was carried out by most of the housing staff on the front line. So we initiated in March daily calls going into the sheltered housing complexes. Delighted to say by the 18th of May, the calls were down to 3 times a week. People were starting to look forward to the calls coming in, but they were feeling, you know, we don't need daily calls. By the 1st of June, the calls were down to weekly. People were starting to get that wee bit more independent. People were actually starting to get up out their bed and say, I'm looking forward to that call coming in. And calls are now, as at today, they're made fortnightly. So the sheltered housing team have just made under 12,000 calls since Monday the 30th of March to last Friday, which is the 14th of August. And that has given us about just under 74.5% of the sheltered tenants on a regular basis that we had no real, shall we say, connection with in the past. Health and Social Care Partnership did, but we didn't. Overall, to date, Housing Services have carried out over 48,000 welfare calls to our tenants who are over 60 within North Ayrshire. The calls, some of the highlights, the calls have been well received, and we've had some really good outcomes from the sheltered complexes. I'm sure the girls that are on here, you know, on the webinar today, they could tell you hilarious stories, but it's not for me to share that information. But what has come out of this is there's been relationships and trust built up. And I think for the people who were going through COVID, we were all going through COVID, it was the unknown. The project has really helped staff and tenants. And why I'm saying staff, a number of staff actually lived on their own. And what that actually gave them was a bit of a boost to help the vulnerable in society and in the complexes. It also let them assist with organising birthdays, anniversaries, and any excuse for a celebration. And I think that for those of you who know me, any excuse for a gin was a good one. The partnership working, just to enhance what Gary was saying there, the partnership working between the services, between Health and Social Care Partnership, between the police, between, you know, all services has enhanced no end. And before I started this role, I wanted to make sure that I had key personnel within each section so I could easily identify who the responsible person was to identify any issues and deal with them. So in addition to that, we identified people, the girls were very good at identifying people who were needing urgent assistance from the community hubs. We set up community hubs within each of the areas in North Ayrshire. And for instance, if people were needing prescriptions picked up or if they were needing any food parcels or anything, we actually linked in with that too. So going forward, we have kind of transferred this into tenant participation. We've got 24 tenants from the complexes who have agreed to be part of a sheltered housing forum, and that's in the future when we go back to, you know, face-to-face meetings. We've got 160 tenants that have become part of our participation and information structures. We've set up a closed Sheltered Connections Facebook, and that's at the moment to replace the contact instead of the monthly meetings that we have with the housing officers. And hopefully, once the time is right, we will have an afternoon tea in each of the complexes. You know, I like my cake, Leslie, so I love to have cake and coffee. So I've got 26 cups of coffee and 26 cakes to have throughout North Ayrshire, but we're going to have an afternoon tea in each of the complexes when the time is right. That gives you a whistle-stop tour of what we're doing in one part of the job, which was the sheltered housing. In partnership with that, in tandem with that, I've been reshaping the tenant participation service, and that's just due to the whole current restrictions. And what that's aimed at now is looking at us getting people more engaged through our digital process. Something that was always on the strategy, and basically we had never got round to doing it. It's like, I don't know, maybe some of you like ironing, but I hate ironing. So to be honest with you, I'll put the ironing off. The digital side was something I was not maybe comfortable with, so I've always been putting that off. However, COVID has made us do it. So we've actually been really pleased with ourselves, I would say, over the last wee while, because we've actually managed to achieve quite a lot and we've reshaped our TP services. So what we've been doing, we've used social media, Twitter and Facebook, our Housing Services, North Ayrshire Council Housing Services, Twitter and Facebook pages. If you haven't dropped by, please drop by, give us a like the pages, and we will do so in return. We've been using those pages to the extreme, if you like, because that's the best way to get out as many messages as we can. Some of our posts are hitting 26,000 reaches, so which is great for us. Nicola and my team and Tracy, I've got 2 TP officers, they have been revising our Tenancy Matters newsletter. We always issue a newsletter 4 times a year. That's had to be abandoned, and we've replaced it with an informal Tenants Chat e-magazine, which has went out to 3,000 of our tenants via email. We're using the sheltered housing and the welfare check-in calls, and we're going to keep them going just now, and we're going to keep that going and keeping this in mind for the rent consultation as well. But what we're doing is any service updates, any changes to policy or anything like that that's not consultation, we're giving the information to the tenants via those check-in calls. Absolutely delighted this week to say that we've met with all our improvement groups, our tenant panel, our North Ayrshire network and service improvement groups virtually. It was an absolute hoot, but lots of fun, and I'm delighted. If I had said to you in March that TP in North Ayrshire was going to be digital by August, you would have thought I'd had too many gins, to be honest. However, I'm delighted to say that all our service improvement meetings are now held virtually, and that's a huge step forward for us. We've set up a tenant youth panel with youth services, and we've got a tenants e-panel, which was previously our interested tenants register, and that is basically people who will get involved with us virtually, and that to be probably, I would say that'll be in place for about September, October. The Sheltered Housing Facebook page, again, I've talked a wee bit about that earlier on, and that's for the sheltered housing tenants, and hopefully they will contribute and take that forward. We still have our Friday coffee and catch up. That's the fun part of tenant participation. Basically, we get together and learn from each other about what's happening in teams, what's happening in everybody's lives, etc. And we have about 50 core people who are our tenant representatives, and they come together, not all of them, just who's available on a Friday for a quick catch up. The final thing we've just finished this week is we've reconfigured our consultation process, and that is, I've just finished a toolkit and a consultation guidelines and a mandate. So that is about revamping our whole process and service digitally. So that's some evidence there. There's some Will Kent faces. I won't say old faces, but there's Will Kent faces in there. And if you'd said, as I said already, I'm absolutely so proud to be able to showcase this, because it's something that I didn't think we were going to achieve. I picked this quote out because I thought it was very relevant coming through COVID. Coming together is a beginning. At the beginning of the process, through COVID, you know, coming together is the start of the process. Staying together, keeping together is progress, and working together is a success. And I think that's where, to be honest with you, working together with our communities is the key message here. Some of the key hints and tips I want to share with you. Leslie had asked if I would share some hints and tips about going forward. It doesn't matter in which way or state or form, keep talking. I think for those of you who know me, I can talk for Scotland. Keep talking. Identify the right methods at the right time. What I'm saying by that in there is do what's right for you, for your landlord, for your tenants. We're having a blended approach, and I really like that blended approach, because it's about bringing in the new but still having the old approach there as well that we can go back to. By having a digital approach, there's new people involved. Get them along, get them involved. The one thing I would say is don't judge against others. Don't judge yourself against other organisations, other tenants, etc., because we all learn at different paces. The new approaches is about learning together. We're all in this boat together, so we need to make sure that we stay together and encourage each other. And I'm going to share a story with you about encouraging. There was one lady I was trying to get on board virtually, if you like, and I said to her, don't think that I've not been where you are. And she said, but you know all about this team thing. And I said, I don't. I said, the first time I went to a meeting, the chair said, okay, if you've got any questions, raise your hand. I said, I didn't know at that particular time there was a hand icon. So like a lunatic, I'm sitting there waving my hand and the chair just ignored me. Then I got to the stage I was getting quite ratty. So what I did was I waved both hands as if I was on the landing strip at Prestwick Airport. I was going like this. Anyway, I'll quickly learn, and I'm sure it's a lesson in there for everyone. There is a wee hand icon that you raise if you want to ask a question. So what I'm saying is encourage each other, learn from each other and share stories. Take small steps, that leads to success. And the final thing I would say is there's support. Don't be sitting out there feeling alone, whether it's landlords, whether it's tenants. There's plenty of basically support, help across the UK. And of course, if you look at the slide I've just put up, the first initial of each of the key points there comes to kindness. And I think that's the thing that struck me across this whole COVID situation, is about the kindness of people and everything about it. And always make things fun. Very much so that fun is the way things are going forward in TP. And that's me for today. So thank you. And I'll take any questions at the end.
Okay, thanks for that, Tracy. I've just realised that we couldn't see your presentation, so if you could share it with us and we'll just send it out.
All right.
Okay.
Yep.
But it was brilliant. Thank you so much. You talked very well, and I think if nothing else, we know that housing does it well. So I'm going to move on to Margaret now. Margaret Fraser's from NG Homes, and Margaret, hopefully we'll be able to get your presentation up and running. I think you have a beautiful assistant called Elaine who's going to do that for you.
So can I just come in there, Tracy? You're now sharing your screen. Can you stop sharing it, please?
Oh, I thought that was you, Elaine.
No problem.
That's Tracy sharing her screen, not mine.
Okay, Tracy.
Think so.
You press the wee cross button, the wee cross next to the microphone. You see it?
It looks like it's Gillian Stewart.
Oh, it's frozen. I think it's frozen. Oh, here we go. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Press that one. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So next speaker is Margaret from NG Homes. Margaret, I think yours, as I was saying, your beautiful assistant Elaine is going to put your presentation up. Oh.
Margaret, are you wanting your newsletter put up?
If you just go straight to the presentation, Elaine.
I don't have a presentation, it's only a newsletter.
I thought the one that we ran through earlier.
That's the video.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant. Sorry, folks. Is that okay? Margaret, you're muted. You need to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Thanks, Margaret. Right. Carry on.
Right, first of all, I can't take any credit for this this wee video that's been put up. It was one of my colleagues that put that together, just using some of our photographs. So, and there's a lovely wee tune that goes with it, but there you are. So I'll just tell you a wee bit about kind of where we are. I think you know, early on in March we started seeing this thing coming across the horizon, and we were all just kind of watching every media report and just didn't know how it was going to hit. We were likewise in the north of Glasgow, and you know, I manage a community regeneration within NG Homes. We already had quite a high level of community involvement and strong partnerships within the community. So seeing this coming our way, we decided that we would bring some people together who we usually bring together for a community networking breakfast. So on the 13th of March, around about 10 days before it hit, we got together with a number of community partners. We started really just to say, right, what things are going to kind of, you know, what do we feel is going to be the impact of this, and what can we all collectively do about it? So so what we did is we worked together, and we got a number of items that we felt, you know, that we would kind of look at. So I'm trying not to look at his presentation because it is maybe not in sync with what I'm kind of saying.
We can halt the presentation if that's better.
It might be easier just
Okay.
because it's can maybe going a wee bit further in terms of what we're saying.
Okay.
With that.
Elaine, can you pause the presentation just now? Elaine, can you pause the present? There you go. Thank you.
Right. So basically, and for those who maybe don't know, North Glasgow and NG Homes, we manage something like 7,000 properties over a kind of quite a distinct area in North Glasgow, covering the wider Springburn and Postle Park. So it is an area where there's high unemployment, you know, high levels of poverty. Amongst our tenants, we've got, you know, a large number of older people, lone parent families, and we've got a mixture of cultural groups as well. So that's the kind of context in terms of what we're already working with. As I say, we've got a number of partners that work within the local community, so we felt it was important really to kind of bring people down together to say, right, what was going to be the main issues. And then come the 23rd of March, and suddenly we're in lockdown, and basically, you know, we're all leaving our offices thinking, when are we going to come back, and what are we going to do? So what we had to do was really mobilise the people that we had on the ground, and that was our volunteers, the community hubs that we'd already made contact with to work with, and we had to make sure that we had the resources in there to cover that. So that was very much the kind of first thing that we did. So right away we had to look at you know, getting food distributed into the area, getting food parcels made up. We already had a furniture and food distribution centre, but that was now closed in effect. So from the very start, we had to move all of that food into the community, into different parts of the community, to be able to get that out to people who needed it. Throughout the time, there was staff, NG Home staff were still working from home. We carried out welfare calls to starting off, like most people, with our vulnerable tenants, and then moving through our list of community engagements to make sure that we were getting everyone there and to find out just what those people needed. So very much, you know, we had to get in there to start with. And then another area, as you all remember, the kind of panic to get food at that time as well was kind of real. You know, so people even trying to get shops. Plus, there was also this thing hanging over us, you know, that we could be hit at any time with COVID-related, you know, symptoms. So could those in our community. So we felt very clearly that we had to really try and operate in a way that we could get food right into the community safely and to those who need it. So one of our first challenges was kind of working with major suppliers to get that out. So that included some of the large wholesalers, and again, working through our partners, and we were able to kind of make contacts with them, getting them into the community. We also were very keen to ensure that we were providing nutritious food as well to people. So we worked with our local traders. For example, a local butcher became very involved in this project, worked with Glasgow Fruit Market, getting the food into the area, and as I say, we mobilised our volunteers and some of our staff to do so. Just prior to COVID, as I say, we had a food and furniture redistribution service which operated for a number of years, and we had two dedicated members there who delivered that service on the ground. However, that project was just coming to an end, and that was through lack of funding. So given the situation, we kept those two staff members on, and we gave them both vehicles so that they would be the main people on, you know, in the vicinity, helping out all the community hubs. So, and we've since managed to get funding to keep that on for the year, because we feel this is going to go on for quite considerable time yet. So they were the key point of contact, really, to kind of mobilise. We worked with churches, community centres, football clubs, the rest of it, just to make sure that we had people there who could deliver not just food parcels, but also hot food to the community. Also remembering that we had a number of cultural groups, that was also an area that we had to think about. So we had to make sure that we had, you know, halal food, we had culturally appropriate food for our African community, for our Chinese community, etc. there. So again, quite a big area to cover. So that's kind of where we started off. Within that, we feel that many have said here already, we got to know our tenants a lot better. You know, so we were making constant phone calls. We were finding out and it wasn't just about the food, you know, it was about their kind of emotional well-being as well. It was about the financial support. In some cases, we found that, you know, for some people, they had basically didn't even have proper cooking facilities. So we had to look at that. We had others who had issues, you know, some social issues that we had, that they required additional support from other agencies. So as I say, we got to know them a lot better, and by keeping contact, we were able to maintain that. So moving on, and I think, you know, that's still going on. So we have literally worked with thousands of people over the period. We worked particularly with Partick Thistle Football Club, who just recently delivered their 25,000th hot meal over the COVID period. We have worked with 6 main community hubs to get food out to people in need. We've helped with energy supplies, pick up prescriptions, hygiene issues. You know, even in some cases, you know, some of our volunteers have helped dog walking, so things like that. So very much we could see a sense of the community coming together. And I have to say that many of the groups that we have worked with prior to the COVID really, you know, came up to the, you know, to the table there with, you know, with the support. So, for example, a group in Springburn who founded a baby food bank, that was through one of our previously funded projects, was just absolutely vital in this service, you know, across the community. So as we've kind of moved on, we became very aware that the issues around social isolation was really beginning to affect people, both anxiety levels, mental health, etc. And we felt that we had to do something particular for those people. Some had been shielding for a period of 12 weeks or more, some isolated. So it's how that we were actually going to kind of work around that. So we set up a programme through funding from the Scottish Government of an afternoon safe tea. So I've got a week in a bag here, and we've delivered those to, at the minute, over 800 people. We did that in partnership with Police Scotland and Scottish Fire Rescue Services, because it did also contain vital safety messages for people, you know, in the area. And we also put the, you know, the Scottish Government route map in there to let people know kind of what we were doing. Again, everybody wants a wee treat, so we also set up our fish teas. So we did that, and again, we've reached over 500 people with that. The other thing that we've done with this, so we work with local businesses to do that, but we've also provided a personal PPE pack for people, because we realise that, particularly for older people or those who are vulnerable, you know, if you've been in for that length of time, things are going to look very much different when you go out there, you know, shopping. So it's how, you know, that they would feel. So as well as this, you know, that we're also providing through funding from Scotland's Towns a shopper service, and we'll be able to get people around to local shops, etc. And the volunteers who help to support them with food parcels will now become their buddies to help to move that particular programme on. So really kind of looking, you know, at how we can further support. Some unexpected partnerships that we've had has been with local businesses. And I think there has been a lot of talk in the media. You see Scotland Loves Local, for example, through Scotland's Towns. And that's very true. I mean, our supermarkets are all here, but, you know, local businesses as well have really suffered through this crisis, and we're all a community, so we should be working together as a community. So local businesses have been absolutely excellent in terms of the work that we have been doing within North Glasgow. So we are continuing to promote that. So we are using the local shops, local cafes, we're using local butchers, etc., and we're continuing that on as we go through. So kind of moving on, you know, where we are just now, we see there is an easing of restrictions for most people. We don't know where we're going to be. We don't know, is there going to be a second wave? There's so much discussion over that. What do we do? So what we've throughout the process, we've had a number of Zoom calls with partners, with volunteers, with elected members, you know, with other agencies, over, you know, again, you know, kind of looking to see, well, what position could we be in? We've also carried out a debriefing with our various community hubs. How's it worked? How well has it worked? What can we do better, there? And what we have agreed is that we were able to mobilise very, very quickly because we had the partnerships, because we had the local people who were involved in a lot of ways, and the goodwill of people has been amazing. We've dubbed them the Angels of the North, there, and they really have been. So what we've decided is that should anything happen, we've got an emergency response team that can just come together in the community. We've also got that at a strategic level with NG Homes, incidentally, but as a community here, that's what we've got. We've got very close connections with the various cultural groups. So, for example, the Chinese have set up their WeChat with Glasgow Afghan United, African Challenge Scotland. So we use all those social media platforms. And basically the other area we're looked at is that we're continuing to be prepared in terms of food supply. So we'll keep that food chain going. We're stocking up. We've been able to say, we've been working with people. You may have an older person there who maybe all they want is, some mince and tatties and some bread and milk and cheese. They don't want all your tinned foods. They want that. So we're getting to know kind of people. And again, it's about keeping all of that kind of going. So yeah, we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot through the whole process. It's been physically, emotionally exhausting, I think, for all of us who have been involved in doing this. And I think it's just about keeping that, those connections. I think, the whole kind of kindliness in communities. I like that when someone else mentioned that earlier on, and that's certainly what we feel here, is it's really come to the fore and how we want to kind of continue to maintain that. So that's kind of where we are just now, and I don't think we're out the woods yet, but as I say, getting to know our tenants better from there, and hopefully, providing the support they need.
That's brilliant, Margaret. Thank you to all our speakers. I think the overwhelming message of people going above and beyond, and I think housing do it very, very well. I can't think of any other service that does the same. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions, and I'm sure some of you've got the wee hand icon, and if you can't, you're going to have to do what Tracy did at Prestwick Airport and jump up and down and wave two hands and shout my name at the same time. Elaine's she'll be keeping an eye on the feed, and apologies for the small hitch at the back there with the technology. So anyone get any questions? Louise? It's Lisa Kelly. Was it Louise Kelly? Who was it?
Yeah.
Hello. Lisa Kelly. Hi, Lisa.
Kelly. Hi, I'm from Radius Housing. I just had a question for a couple of the speakers. They were talking about getting the tenants engaged with the likes of attending meetings virtually. Did the tenants have the tablets or iPads and internet access, or did you provide them for the tenants? Because we have found here that so many of our tenants, especially in sheltered schemes, don't have the internet access, or they don't have the technology or the capability of using the technology, such as not having the training.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. I should say that Lisa's from, and it's really great to have partnerships across the water as well. Lisa's from a housing association in Northern Ireland, so thanks for that, Lisa. So Margaret and Tracy and Gary. Margaret, you're unmuted. Yeah. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, well, yeah. So within the area that we are in, there's a lot of digital exclusion, and we discovered that pre-COVID, and it was something we were already working on in terms of providing that, both from a personal point of view, educational as well for children, but also for some health, reasons as well. And that very much came to the fore through this. So we did work with some of the parents, and some of the local schools were helping the children, with certain tablets and things like that. We previously had a partnership with Retech, who recycled IT equipment. So we contacted them, and we managed to get some tablets, etc., laptops for individuals. That particularly came to us as an issue with there was one particular tenant we worked with providing food initially, and then to see you get to know them. and he disclosed to us that he was a recovering alcoholic, and he was missing his AA meetings, and that was extremely important to him. You can imagine through this time, so he became, so that was you know, kind of pretty vital that we get that to him, and you know, speedily, which we did. From that now, that's one of the areas that we have learned from, and says that we need to make sure that we get more of this out to individuals. So that's currently what we're working on just now. So we are working on a supply to get out to folk who need it. There has been an issue with some older people who maybe do need some more training on it. So now that we're kind of in between this stage here just now, we'll be able to use that in that sense, using tablets.
Okay, thanks, Margaret.
Thank you.
I think the Scottish Government have just released more funding for tech for people. So,
yeah.
Gary, do you have anything to add to that?
Sorry, was that me, Leslie? You were asking?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, you cut out for a second. I didn't hear you.
Yeah, it was because I cut myself off. Sorry.
Yeah, we got some funding from Connecting Scotland. We worked with our local authority, and I think there's a joint bid put in for the area as a whole. It is really just to identify those who are really socially excluded and who have been affected by COVID. But I mean, we're looking at some other schemes moving forward. Delina Morrison's here. She'll be working closely with me and trying to tie that into the tenant participation strategy as we move forward. But I mean, I think we had 9 devices to begin with, and we've just been awarded another 15. So there's definitely options out there for doing that, and I think going down the route of recycling, maybe keeping it local in terms of donations of old devices, that might be a way that we're thinking of as well. But we're at the early stages of doing this, so I suppose check back in a year and see how we're getting on.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Tracy Wilson?
Hi, Lisa. First of all, sorry folks, you couldn't see my presentation. I must have been maybe waving out too much in the Prestwick Airport landing slip, so I get carried away. So I will apologise profusely about that. Lisa, we haven't actually supplied any tablets or devices. We've asked a question, but through the SCVO, they were looking to provide a bit of funding with our information officer over in the different directorate, and they were looking at going out to assist people who are, shall we say, digitally excluded within sheltered accommodation. So that's actually, we're looking at that just now, but we've not actually purchased any or put any out on loan.
Okay, thanks, Tracy. So do we have any more questions? Thanks, Lisa. Any more questions? Louise Mitchell? Hi, Louise.
Hiya. Leslie, I am doing some digital champion training that I've signed up for. If it would be useful, I'll send you the link so you can share it with everyone.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for that. I think that would be really useful. We can send that out to everyone who's on the call today. Thank you.
Perfect, no worries.
Thanks. So, any other questions? Any other comments? Okay, Louise McNeilage. Hi, Louise.
Thanks, Leslie. Hiya. I was just thank you very much to the presenters. That was really interesting just to kind of hear, and a lot of it actually rings true with what's been happening down in the borders as well. We're obviously a rural area and there's a lot of remoteness. We're also a very large area, big geographical spread, and we've done the welfare calls. We've been keeping in touch with as many tenants as we can. We have over 5,500 properties, so we are quite a big unit down here, and trying to speak to every single tenant can be difficult, obviously. Leslie will be aware of SBTO in our organisation that we have, and I'm actually in the process this week and next of training them on Teams. Some of our board members are SBTO members, so they're already kind of quite clued up and quite comfortable with Teams. And I've got a few people who are a little bit more nervous. And I think kind of listening to you guys, and you've got tips and ideas and all these kind of things, because you've been maybe through, you might be further through it than us, I don't know, but I suppose I'm just kind of, because I'm quite new to this, I'm kind of looking to kind of network a little bit and hook up with some guys and find out what best practices that you guys do, and get a bit more information. So if there's anybody who wants to be my friend, it would be quite nice to kind of get some experience, because obviously, as I said, I'm new to this, and I have a lot to learn, and I can talk too. I can certainly talk for Scotland, so I'll match you, Tracy, on that one. But I'd like to get my knowledge up a little bit, and I think it's really important that I don't make errors when we're talking to our tenants and we get it right as best we can. So it was more just a kind of thank you very much and a plea for if you want to get in touch, and it would be good to kind of get maybe a little group of people together that we can share best practice and stuff. So, and that might come through you guys, Leslie. I don't really know how it works. So
yeah, we have some TP workers catch-ups, Louisa. Louise, so I'll put your name on the list. We'll be having another one in a week or two.
Yeah,
we'll get you joined onto that. Lisa?
Thank you.
Lisa?
Hi everybody, I'm Lisa, I work for TPAS Scotland. I'm based at Stirling Council though, and this week we done some Teams training with some of our tenants. I did book it away at the beginning of June, but I was just managing to get it. I think a lot of the staff were needing Teams training as well. So the tenants joined in, and a lot of them are not computer literate, but they done so well. We were trying to give them the basics. I think she was showing them how to share documents and stuff like that, and they don't necessarily need that. But I can kind of go over the kind of basics with them. But the sharing the information, that was useful for me as well, because as you say, we're all new to it as well. And some of the tenants that actually joined, they hadn't. One of them was a man who hadn't used the computer in about 10 years, so he got a loan of a tablet off his daughter. And I kind of just talked him round and how to use it and how to get on. And I gave them a wee kind of guide on how to join Teams. What I do is with my tenants is, you know how you send a Teams invite and it will say accept, but if they've not got Office 365, when they accept it, it disappears. So I've told them now what I'll do is half an hour before a meeting is I'll send them a reminder, and they use the wee reminder. So a lot of them just kind of ignore the first one now, and they just use the wee reminder. So that's maybe a good hint for some of your tenants, because I kept saying, it'll go to your calendar, it'll be in your calendar, no realising they don't have a calendar. So tenants are surprising that because this is the only way that communicate, they want to continue with their meetings, so they will try all these new devices. One issue that I do have is, so some of them have got major problems with their Wi-Fi, and that's something that I kind of feel as if I can't help them with that, apart from tell them to go and contact whoever does their broadband and contact them and try and improve it. But yeah, it's surprising how good tenants kind of pick up Teams, and I think once they've done it once, they get more confident, and the fact that they get to talk to each other as well, it's great. So I just wanted to let you know we've done that.
Thanks.
Leslie, you've muted yourself.
I nearly swore there. Imagine that. As if. Lisa's also done a guide to making the best out of your team meetings, which is on the workplace. But you can drop us an email, and if anyone else who wants it. So I think Margaret Diamond and then Alistair had their hands up. So I'm going to ask Margaret to come in. You there, Margaret?
Margaret, you need to take off your mute.
Hello, Margaret.
Hi, everybody. Sorry,
Hi,
Leslie. Again, as usual. I was just going to say, all your housing association members that are on here today, and also the local authority, I think they're doing a fantastic job, because I've got to say, as a tenant, I recognise everything that's been said, and I think there's a lot of good practice going on. So yourself, I think TPAS have done a great job getting us all on here today. And you're right, Teams, I never knew about Teams or Zoom or anything, or Skype until quite recently. And I've got to say this, guys, thanks to TPAS, I'm actually on this, because they gave me the tablet so that I could be able to. And now our council are actually going to give us some more stuff to help us. So it's really great. Anything good coming out of this COVID is a plus for me, to be quite honest with you. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Margaret. I think another point, Margaret, is that you live in a multi-storey block,
I do,
which means that only some kinds of Wi-Fi will work. Not all the Wi-Fi providers can be used. So yeah, that's great, Margaret. Thanks. So I'm going to.
Thanks.
Okay, someone. Yeah, no, you mute yourself or get Elaine to do it, and I'll ask Alistair to come in now. Alistair Mackenzie.
Just a very quick one. Yeah, just a very quick one to follow on from what Lisa was saying. If you have a Gmail account and a Google Calendar, it goes into that as well, Lisa. So when you accept, it'll go into your Google Calendar as well.
Are you in the tropics, Alistair, or are you still in Stornoway?
I'm still in Stornoway.
It's a very tropical shirt.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Alistair.
This afternoon.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It's blowing a hoolie down here. So if we get any more questions, any more points that people want to make? I think I'm going to use the chairperson's prerogative and agree with what Margaret was saying. And I think housing have absolutely come up to the mark. I think, as I said earlier, I'm absolutely overwhelmed by the acts of kindness that people are doing within their working life and out with working life. I think housing folk have definitely stepped up to the mark. I think what's also surprising, I think all of the speakers kind of referred to that, was that the engagement opportunities that have come out of COVID, that people we've never spoken to before, people who pay their rent, live in their houses, shut the door, get their repairs and get on with their lives, is something that we have to not lose. And yeah, blended I think is absolutely the way to go, with a range of opportunities, and we can all add the digital offer to our range of opportunities. So I'm just going to give people one last chance to get their tuppence worth in. Any last tuppence worthies? No, again, 3 amazing speakers, 3 different experiences. Obviously, challenges of working in an island, the challenges of working in a local authority with a widespread area, and the challenges of some of the communities in North Glasgow. And I think I've really enjoyed it and learned a lot today. So thank you very much to our speakers, and thanks to everybody in the room for coming along. Louise McNeilage, if you want to give us a shout, then we can pass on the information for you.
I will do, Leslie. I'll email Elaine after this. Thank you very much.
Okay, grand. So thanks very much. A round of applause to everybody for coming along and taking part. Thanks, folks.
I think just to say before everybody goes, Margaret Fraser has also produced a newsletter. If anybody wants a copy of it, just give me a shout and I'll send it on to you.
I think that, well, I thought it was my last word, but I forgot to tell you we're having another webinar on the 16th of September. It's our contribution to Scottish Housing Day, and that webinar is from Citizens Advice Scotland. And they're going to be talking about generally what CAB, because a lot of folk thought that CAB had closed down over the period. A bit of a high-level chat on tenants' rights during lockdown. You probably noticed the bits and pieces on the press just now about evictions for rent arrears, notice periods, early engagement with landlords if you were running into money trouble, and some statistics, quite scary statistics about Citizens Advice, what they've been finding over the COVID period. And you can again book that through Eventbrite. Finally, we're launching our first, some of you are signed up for Tenants Voice Scotland, which is a unique and only survey vehicle available to only tenants in Scotland. And we're doing our first survey, which is going to launch on the 7th of September. It's not too late to join. If anyone wants to join, they can contact Elaine, and we'd like you to promote it through all your networks. And that's my last word. So it's time to go and get a cup of coffee. I'll avoid the cake. I have a bowl of cherries here, actually. I really do have a bowl of cherries. So I'm going to have a few cherries rather than cake. So safe home, everybody, or safely disengage. And thanks for everything. Cheers, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye.